The Galactic Combat Academy's training hall stretched 300 meters in every direction, its crystalline walls reflecting the pale blue light of Kepler 442b's twin suns. Instructor Velkoth, a 7-foot-tall Credonian with 4 arms and scales that shimmered like oil on water, stood before the assembled recruits with the confidence of someone who had trained warriors for 3 decades. Paul Martinez shifted uncomfortably in formation, his human frame dwarfed by the towering aliens surrounding him. To his right stood Olivia Chen, the only other human in their cohort. While Paul had barely passed the entrance examinations, Olivia had sailed through with scores that raised eyebrows across multiple species. She stood with perfect posture, her dark eyes fixed on the instructor. Betraying nothing, today, Velkoth announced, his translator collar rendering his clicking speech into standard galactic. We assess your combat ratings. Each species has evolved unique advantages. The Credonians possess superior strength. The Vexari have telepathic coordination. The Thornbacks regenerate from grievous wounds. His vertical pupils swept across the room. And humans, well, we shall see what humans possess. Paul caught the dismissive tone. Humans were the newest addition to the Galactic Federation, barely 50 years into first contact. They were small, fragile, lacking in natural weapons or armor. Most species viewed them as administrative staff at best, but testing began. One by one, recruits approached the combat scanner, an ancient precursor device that measured reflexes, strategic thinking, physical capabilities, and combat instinct in real. The machine spat out ratings: Alpha 7 for a Thornback, Beta 3 for a Vex, Delta 6 for a smaller species Paul couldn't identify. Martinez. Paul human stepped forward. Paul's mouth went dry as he approached the scanner. The device hummed to life, invisible sensors washing over his body. Numbers and alien script flickered across its surface. After a moment it beeped. Gamer 4 Velkoth read aloud, his tone suggesting this was exactly what he'd expected. Adequate for rear support positions. Next. Paul returned to formation, his cheeks burning. Adequate. The word stung more than he wanted to admit. Chen. Olivia Human stepped forward. Olivia moved with fluid grace, stopping precisely at the designated mark. The scanner activated, and immediately something seemed different. The humming grew louder, more insistent. The display flickered erratically, symbols cascading faster than before. Velkoth's scales rippled with confusion as he leaned closer to read the output. The scanner beeped 3 times an error signal. Unknown, Velkoth read, his 4 eyes narrowing. Combat rating, unknown. He turned to Olivia. Step back. The machine must be malfunctioning. The machine is fine, Olivia said quietly. I will determine what is fine, recruit. Now, test me manually then, Olivia interrupted, her voice steady. If the scanner can't read me, use the old method. A ripple of shock passed through the assembled recruits. No one interrupted Instructor Velkoth. The Credonian's scales darkened to a deep crimson, a sign of anger in his species. You dare. I'm not being insubordinate, Instructor. I'm requesting proper assessment. Isn't that Academy protocol when scanner errors occur? Velkoth's jaw worked silently. She was right, and they both knew it. The manual assessment was an ancient tradition, rarely used but never abolished. He reached for his training blade, a dull-edged weapon made of compressed titanium alloy, still capable of breaking bones if wielded with full force. Very well, human. We will test your combat rating the traditional way. He raised the blade, assuming a textbook Credonian combat stance. Defend yourself. Olivia didn't move, didn't even raise her hands. Velkoth lunged, a controlled strike aimed at her shoulder, fast enough to be threatening, slow enough not to seriously injure. It was a test every instructor in the galaxy knew: measure the recruit's reaction time. Their defensive instinct, their capacity to. Olivia's hand became a blur. One moment Velkoth held the blade, the next Olivia stood calmly 5 feet away, the training weapon held loosely in her right hand. She hadn't blocked, she hadn't dodged, she had simply taken it from him mid-strike. The training hall fell absolutely silent. Velkoth stared at his empty hands. All 4 of them. His translator collar couldn't quite capture the strangled sound he made. Around the room, recruits from a dozen species stood frozen in disbelief. Paul's jaw had dropped open. How? Velkoth finally managed. Olivia examined the blade with professional interest before offering it back, handle first. Human reaction time varies considerably based on training and genetic factors. Instructor, standard assessments don't account for our military special operations programs. I spent 8 years in Earth's Shadow Corps before applying to the Academy. Shadow Corps. Velkoth accepted the blade numbly. Classified program. deep reconnaissance, high-value target acquisition, asymmetric warfare. Olivia's expression remained neutral. Humans are ambush predators. Instructor, we evolved chasing prey across continents, tracking for days, striking from surprise. We don't have scales or claws, so we developed something else: pattern recognition, adaptive thinking, and the ability to end threats before they know we're there. She gestured to the scanner. That machine measures conventional combat parameters. It doesn't know what to do with a species that weaponizes deception, that turns environment and psychology into weapons, that wins fights before they begin. Velkov's scales slowly shifted back to their normal color. When he spoke again, his tone carried new respect. Your rating, Recruit Shen, is reserved for those who transcend standard combat classification. He turned to address the entire hall. Let this be your first true lesson. Never assume you understand a species' capabilities based on their appearance. The humans look fragile. They seem weak, but they climbed to the top of their food chain on a death world, and they did it without claws, without venom, without armor. He looked back at Olivia. They did it with this. He tapped his head. And this, he placed a hand over his primary heart. Mind and will. Remember that. Paul caught Olivia's eye as she returned to formation. She gave him the tiniest smile, and he realized something that sent chills down his spine. She'd been holding back during entrance exams. Way back. As training resumed, word spread through the Academy's network. The human who broke the scanner, the recruit who disarmed Velkov, the unbreakable. Humanity's reputation shifted in a single afternoon. And in the vastness of space, among species who had mastered the stars for millennia, they learned an old human truth. It's not the size of the fighter in the fight, but the size of the fight in the fighter. Olivia Chan had just reminded the galaxy why humans had earned their place among the stars. They weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most numerous. They were simply the most dangerous when underestimated.